Well, we're live, so welcome to EMS Office Hours. I am Jim Hoffman.
Josh Knapp.
Dave Brenner.
So, of course, I want to thank anyone joining us live here for joining us on these live podcasts we've been trying to do here. Be sure to hit the like button below or the heart button, the hate button, whatever. It really does help us out, get the show going out there. Give it a few minutes. We'll probably get some people jumping in here, getting a little traction with the Facebook Lives.
You want to see us. You want to know what's going on.
Yeah, something like that. But I just, we did pretty good last episode with the COVID episode. We talked about the response of, in particular, FDNY and how they're treating members and stuff like that. So I thought that was an important episode, and that kind of, I don't know why, maybe because we were talking about it or I did some research on it, that I started getting other stuff popping up in my feed, of course, because the Facebooks is listening, and saw some content and some articles about other things that kind of go hand in hand with that. And talking about, I saw an article about the pay of EMS, and particularly in New York City. And I know that that's a kind of a big topic that goes on in EMS and podcasts, and it gets talked about a lot, but I think what kind of just surprises me is that I saw this article. It was on EMS One. They had posted it there, and talked about the pay being low, and how members have to work 4 jobs just to make ends meet. And this article actually it was from, I believe, initially from the Staten Island Advance, and some of their contributors picked up on it and wrote some more articles about it. And I just think it's interesting, because this is something that goes round and round in EMS, right? The pay, the working environment. One of the comments that I thought was interesting in the article was how there's such a big turnover, right? Because the pay just isn't there, and people get into it and they find they can't make ends meet by what the salary is, and that working 3 jobs or whatever, 4 jobs is too much for them to handle, so they end up leaving. So the comment that I saw was that according to their union there, about 75% of the workforce has less than 5 years experience. And the question becomes, what's the value of the experience, the expertise of the people that are responding to the public when they call 911? Are they going to constantly get the new people coming in? Or are they never going to have the experienced people because the pay just isn't there and people go elsewhere? So I don't want to get too much into the pay, but I guess I'm trying to get you guys' opinion on what you think as far as the sudden, kind of spotlight on this. You think it's because COVID came around and we're getting some more opportunities to kind of shed the light on this stuff?
I'm not sure if it's because COVID came around, shedding a spotlight. I think it's more because COVID came around and there's been a lot of attrition in all first responder ranks. And the aspect of our current political situation where there's a question of how we're funding departments and what departments are going to get funded and how much, and are we reducing that? And people who had time in the ranks and have the ability to say enough of this nonsense are taking that path.
Yeah.
I think,
Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, I think one of the things you mentioned, when bad things happen, we get attention. I mean, I can remember, and it's crystal clear in my head, right after 9/11, you put on the siren and everybody got out of your way. They pulled over to the side. It was like Moses at the sea. Everything opened up, and the respect was there, and people were concerned about us, and they thanked us. And I think that this pandemic has done that again. It's given a lot of attention to us, and then then they hear about our stressors, and our stressors. I'm not expecting EMS to not be stressful. You don't go into this field if you don't think there's going to be stress. There is going to be stress. But they hear about it, and they hear about how sometimes it's overwhelming, and then the salary comes in, and it gets, people move on to different jobs. I do want to point out one thing though for New York. All right. Aside from the fact that in general, New York, as underpaid as they are, is one of the highest in the nation. Of course, we are also the highest cost of living in the nation. Right. One of the reasons why they only have a few people with 5 years or more in their ranks is because, and you probably know this, joining FDNY EMS is the back door to getting hired into the fire department. So if you become an EMT or a firefighter, a paramedic in FDNY EMS, when the time comes that they're hiring firefighters, you shoot to the front of the line. And I know so many students, because, I get them as their EMTs. I know so many of them who became EMTs or paramedics because their parents, usually their father, but their parents told them, hey, you want to get in at the top? You become an EMT. And it's almost like, hey, kid, let me tell you what I know. And they go and they become EMTs, and they put in their 2 years. I think they have to have at least 2 years in EMS. And then as soon as the opportunity comes to leave and become a firefighter, who gets paid more in general, the top end is way higher, has a nicer working schedule, and a better pension. But aside from that, they go to do that. So I think that drives down the experience level. And FDNY, every time they start a hiring for the fire department, they suddenly find themselves with not enough EMTs and paramedics. And it's like a surprise to them. Yep. Why is this happening? Why do we have such a shortage? Because you're taking them. Yeah, if only we could have predicted this, like the last 6-7 times this happened. And then they let it wallow with understaffed and mandatory overtime for the people that are still there who didn't want to go the fire route, or were too old because this route didn't come in then, or just have no interest in fire. So I need to put that in, but I do think that bad times put us in the limelight, and people hear about us, and it's it's a good education for them, and if they're not hearing it, the paramedics listening to this, the EMTs listening to this on Facebook, they're not hearing anything new. They didn't get into this thinking, oh, this is my way to make a fortune. I could go into real estate, I could become an accountant, or I'm going to become a paramedic. And, you don't go into this for the money. I'm not saying you can't make a living with it. You can.
You can scrape by.
But most of
more jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you're listening, guys, hit the like button, but,
the thing is too, is something that I think is important too, is that, you talk about it being less than 5 years, right? So the fire department goes and spends all this money to train you as an EMT or train you as a paramedic, right? And then the whole operational end of it, uniforms, all that stuff, and then you leave, even if it's not to go to the fire side, you go someplace else. I know a lot of EMTs and medics that went and became cops. Not that the initial salary is that great, but the benefits, the work schedule, all that stuff is better.
The
right?
pension.
Yeah. And the pension, right? Exactly. So they go to that. So then it becomes, they're wasting all that money on again, like you said, Dave, are hiring all these people now that go to these other academies. I mean, I knew people that went and became bus drivers that were EMTs.
Well, here's a couple of things that it almost makes it that you have to move on, that you have to, when these opportunities to lateral transition to another department within the city, make it so that you need to move on. There are aspects where having a city job, you accumulate so much city time. It may not be the fire department pension and the police department pension don't go together, but there's city time that gets you certain benefits. It gets you higher up on the promotion ladder, all of those other things that you can carry with you. So when you start out in these departments, and then you look at the opportunities presented, either straight, more a closer connection with the fire department, and you go to the fire department, and now you have 5 less years to retire, and you have a greater top end that you can make. The attention, the math almost makes you want to go. For the police department, and it's somewhat for the fire department too. Think of it. If you start this as a career straight out of high school or a few years after high school, you're 20 years old and you retire at 40, 45, you still have another career that you can go to. I worked on Wall Street. I went to EMS after 9/11. I've had almost 20 years in EMS now. And there's that aspect where you can now build on a good career. So you're with the police department, you can go joint terrorism task force, you can go, you can go a myriad of things, including high price consulting. So now where you're making $80, $90, $120,000 a year at the end of your time in the police department, you can leave there and start making $500 an hour, $1,000 an hour as a consultant. Yeah. You're an idiot if you don't do that, unless you just have enough and you want to retire right there. But if you're still, you have kids you want to put through college, you have security, you want to get that boat.
Listen, I'm not saying nobody makes $500 an hour, but it's not the average retired police officer who comes out and makes $500 an hour.
Yeah, but I understand. I understand what Josh is saying.
In the top end of the consulting world, Dave.
Yes, at the top end, yes.
It's not even. I want to say it's not even the top end of the consulting world. All right.
Not of the consulting world, but for people coming out as police officers, unless they have some sort of specialty.
Okay, all right, but still, that avenue is there for them.
Listen, the best way for a civil servant to make money is to retire and continue working. Just saying.
Say it again.
Retire and continue working.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I know a cop.
He was an
ESU cop, and he stopped doing ESU cop, and he retired and became started working with a private company with bomb dogs and stuff like that, and he's doing all right there. Became, like you said, Josh, he became a supervisor, a manager, and what.
When I was an assistant principal in the city, we would routinely get retired police officers who became teachers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would collect their pension and a full-time salary from teaching. And then when they retired from teaching, things got really nice, And they did their job. But we all had the same well, I don't want to say that, but it appears that we all had the same opportunity when we graduated from high school to make these decisions.
Look, just to defend the number that I threw out there, when I was working as a consultant, and granted it was IT at the time, that IT was a needed hot profession, that the consultants were bringing down $500 an hour.
I understand.
And I understand where you're saying, Dave, unless you have that particular skill, you're not going to demand that type of money. But when you leave a career, when you retire from a career like in fire department or in police department, there are greater avenues, more doors open to you where you can make decent money on top of pulling in a pension, and now you're making a ton of money.
I agree.
And do that for another 15, 20 years, retire at 60, 65. Now you're sitting pretty. Now you can sit with your grandkids on your lap and teach.
But I guess the thing is that you got to make it that 20 years. You know, Dave sent a little chart out about the average salary going on for medics in the country, and if you look at it, mostly it's not that far off. Pretty much nationwide. You know, New York City makes 47.7, and then it kind of goes down from there, and then the lowest is out in North Carolina, Florida, where they're only making 36,000 a year as a medic. You know,
As the base salary.
Yeah, the base salary. Now,
you know, lock in here, what's the poverty level in this country? Is it 20,000 a year? Is that if you're
and of course, if you have a family of four, that's not a lot of money. Even if $47,000 a year is not a lot of money.
This is why listen. I've never met a medic or an EMT that doesn't have at least two jobs, being a medic or an EMT, or doing something else.
Right.
You know, I mean, where I'm at now, firefighters don't make a hell of a lot of money either. They're only making maybe $12, $13 an hour as a firefighter, full-time firefighter, and they're all, and the most popular job they do on the side is they do landscaping. You know, and most of them will tell you that they make more money cutting grass than they do as a firefighter, but they love being a firefighter.
And they get their benefits.
And they do because of the benefits that they get.
And the landscaping is off the books. Oh, wait a minute. Can't be.
Well, you know.
But bringing this conversation sort of full circle, and I had a question for you, Dave, because I know you're still with Remsco, right? Or you still have ties to them, I guess?
I have ties.
So how many, do you know what the numbers were in terms of fire department, EMS? Because in New York, we have a sort of a confusing system of volunteer hospitals and the city EMS. What was the weight? Was there, I knew at one point there was approximately like 5,000 EMS in the city.
Oh, my association with Remsco was Suffolk.
Okay.
I was never in New York City, Remsco. I mean, I do a little work for them, but by the way, not the $500 an hour consulting work.
Get out of here.
I want to tell you, I have to tell you the truth. I have to tell you the truth. A few years ago, I got approached by the person in charge. They wanted me to run an instructor class for them. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I said, well, how much do I get paid? I hope you're sitting down. I know you are because I can see you. $18 an hour. So I could train instructors who are clearly going to make $25, $40, $60 an hour. They were offering me $18 an hour. That's all they could guarantee. Yeah. How ridiculous is that? And I did it for them because some things I do that are not for the money.
Right.
But,
right.
For the glamour.
The glamour.
But so there's the where I was going with that is you have a bunch of EMS in the city area who work the 911 system, but don't get the benefits of the people who work for the city. So there's that end as well that sort of clouds the issue. They don't have the immediate job. They can apply for the fire department jobs, but because they're not in the fire department, they don't get
no promotion.
Yeah.
Right. It's not an easy path at that point.
I just, like I said early on when we first started it out, I just find it just, the question is that why is it all of a sudden it's this big surprise and everyone's, wow, they have to work 4 jobs. I can't believe it, and I can only think it's because of, like Dave said, we're in the kind of limelight right now with COVID, and it just, they run the numbers of how many calls we did last year, and it starts being like, holy shit, they're working like dogs. And part of the article I read too is something about that because of the attrition, a lot of times they're short staffed, which means the people that are working there end up getting, overworked. So then you have that stress, piled on top of everything else, And I want to just move on from that guy because I want to kind of talk about, it's just a tweet that I saw, right? But it kind of ties into this a little bit. And it was a tweet from somebody who runs EMT, a paramedic class. I'm not sure where he is, but he says that he believes that 90% of their graduates will hold managerial or leadership positions within 6 years of graduating. And I'm like, I'm not sure where all of these managerial and leadership positions are coming from, number one. But the other part of that goes back to what we were saying earlier, that now you've got people that have this experience and expertise as being a field provider are now going to be, all of a sudden, now they're going to be managers.
Was that in New York City?
What's that?
Was that from New York City?
No, I'm not sure where he's from.
Yeah, I suspect that it can't be statistic,
No.
unless the person's saying, when they take my course, 90% of you, not me, not Dave Brenner.
He's talking about his actual whatever paramedic program that they run. I tried looking at his profile real quick before we got on. I wanted to try to get a little deeper, but I do not see like a web link or anything like that goes to where he's a teacher at.
Is it through a college?
I believe so. I want to say it's he's in the only thing I can give you, he's in Kentucky someplace.
So, that sounds just like somebody who either hit the wrong key and sent out the tweet, or is just full of cow manure.
Yeah,
quite
but,
honestly,
but again, the reason why I mentioned that is because he tweeted that, and then you get other people who are in EMS retweeting it, right? Promoting it as if it's this great, saying you should put this on your brochure for the class. It should be something you should be promoting as part of getting students in. And I'm like, yeah, but you're just telling people that they're going to somehow be a manager right off, or that, you're telling people that the most they'll have to work out in the field is maybe 6 years, and I know, and I'm Josh, that the amount of supervisory level jobs and managerial jobs in EMS are few.
It's a pyramid, right?
And then as a job, it's it goes beyond just having education. You've got to know the right people. You've got to be able, you have to have a certain amount of years on the job. And
truly, that's the way it works everywhere.
So,
right?
Josh, in the company that you work for, when I did my
presently,
when I did my consulting for them,
everybody told me you got $500 an hour.
That's where I came from.
Yeah.
That's where it came from. Well, anyway, I did consult for them, but at the time there were nearly 200 paramedics working from that one agency. Is that about right now?
No, I think they've I know we have somewhere around 500 EMS participants. That's only going to go, Jim, if you actually speak.
Well, no, we're streaming live. He's telling people to hit the button.
Yeah, but what
if they're looking at us?
But you see the little yellow around my box. So now I'm on Facebook. When you speak, you'll be on Facebook. That was him.
But I'm up in the corner.
Yep. So anyway, if you say you've got 500 people, 500 EMTs and paramedics working for that agency, how many are administrative? In other words, how many of them became administrative supervisors or in some way advanced from the ranks, from the rank and file?
I believe we have one director, 3 managers, and I'm gonna say a dozen supervisors.
So let's be generous and say 20.
Let's
say 20.
Yeah.
And And do people consider themselves supervisors if they're like the paramedic who's in charge of supplies?
No.
I don't know. Okay, so if you had 20 and you had 500 people there, then you've got something like 4%.
Oh shit, we're doing math now.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have Dave. Dave does math.
Not an exact science, so.
Well, it's like
You know,
two over 50 is 4%. I'm
and
just
that's
saying.
actually pretty damn good, right? Considering that, let's say you're a talented football player in high school and you want to get into the NFL. You know, the percentage to that is like 0.1% of all the high school football players getting drafted, you know, to play on a rookie league and then moving up into, you know, the televised stuff. Come on.
I gave up my football career to become an EMT.
You too, huh?
Yes.
But the bottom line, I want to circle full back into this idea of where Jim started is the concept of, oh my God, you can't say an EMT is working 4 jobs, and it's
they are.
Absolutely can. Right. I personally don't know anybody that works less than 2 jobs,
Yeah.
including myself.
And I know a bunch of people who are working a bunch of jobs and none of them full time, and therefore
they have no benefits.
They have no benefits, and that's just rotten.
In a job where you can get hurt pretty damn easily, especially if you're old.
They got workman's comp, but you know that's
not.
I mean,
no,
they should. No, you know, if you're working, and they're not working 40 hours a week, they're working 100 hours a week,
right?
For multiple and the truth. I mean, New York City thinks they figured this out. We give everybody a number and we don't let them work more than 16 hours in a row. Except they work there 16 hours in New York City. They come out to my place. They work another 16-hour shift there because they got a 1-hour lapse in driving. They're hoping to do some EMS, earn money sleeping for where I am. And they're not. They work 16 hours. And you know what they do after that? They go right back. And if they got beat up at my place, they're going to go. Now they're working 32 hours straight with 2 hours
Josh, do you know, are they
awful driving.
Are they doing that in the city that you know of, Josh? I know that when I was in the city and you know, supervisor and all, I had people that would do that, right? They'd work 8 hours with me, and then I'd see them picking up a shift to go to the neighboring hospital, like, you know, a mile away, and they wouldn't even be. They would still be logged in to my tour, and then the next shift would be starting at another hospital, so they'd be kind of double dipping.
Woo! That's asking for crazy trouble.
Yeah, and then eventually, you know, FDNY stopped allowing people to go from one place to another directly because of that. You know, because it was always that.
I have to say, Jim, I can't say I've ever seen that.
Yeah, because you know what happens is that you're reporting that, okay, this is on my schedule. I've got Jim and Josh on the schedule here, but then until 7 p.m. and then at 6 p.m. the next shift starts at this other hospital, and Jim's working with Dave. So how the hell is Jim in 2 places at one time?
Jim's banging in late.
Look, right. I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I don't personally know of people who are doing like that level of double dipping. I do know guys who are just working their ass off and have the energy, or think they have the energy, to basically do those 32-hour straight shits.
And like that, yeah, right. Like Dave said, they'll go from one place to another, and they'll do it for like 3-4 days straight, not even go home.
Right.
With the hope that they're going to maybe get a nap in the ambulance or get a nap at a station someplace, and push them through till, you know, they can get a day off, you know.
Right. And then that, you know, and then you also play the games where you have you work. I've known numbers of guys who have worked full time at 2 houses, you know, so that's 2 40-hour that they have to clock.
I worked two full-time jobs.
That's 80 hours a week committed. So the only breaks you get in shortening your work, the hours of your work week, is to take a vacation and then to work a shift.
Yeah.
You know, so they get paid that, you know, that's about, and that's, I don't consider that double dipping because you're
It's
using
not.
your own,
Yeah.
it's not, right.
Yeah.
So the,
Thank God there's 168 hours in a week
you know,
because you can work them all.
and people do with overtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But and the other troublesome thing too is that, and I know people that have done this, right? They're scheduled to work, let's say, 3 days straight or something like that, or whatever, and going back to back from one place to another. But they picked up, those other jobs, not their full-time jobs, either a per diem job or a part-time job, and
Squeeze
they
them
get so
in too.
tired because they get overworked that they just say, "The hell with it! I'm banging in at this next shift. I'm just too tired. I don't really care. It's just a per diem job," and they bang in. And now that agency is short a person. They got to suddenly trying to fill that role, and it just ends up being very problematic. I think
And
for
the
all of
agencies
it.
are reluctant to discipline the people who
Yes.
are part-time and banging in. The discipline
Because
except for the
because they
full-time.
can't get people to replace them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So beat up your full-time people. Make sure you crack the whip on them.
You
Well,
want
that was
people
the big.
not to bang in, you make them full time.
But just to be absolutely clear, this whole thing of working back to back to back to back, every house has its sort of rules that you can work two shifts together, 16 hours, and that's it. You can't work, over six. You can't book for an over 16-hour schedule. And what happens with the fire department is they work it through their computer system. So you are vaxxed. You have a number from the city. You put that gets brought in to the fire department. They put you in the computer. They know who you are, what your work level is, what ambulance you're on. And that way, if something happens or you go, they know who's there. But once you leave that system and let's say go to private transport, that's up to the individual organization and they don't correlate with the fire department.
Yeah.
They have no obligation to.
It really is. I think back to some of the stuff that went on, man. I mean, I remember we'd have a big hiring of per diems and stuff, and you get them in and you sit down and interview these people, and I would say to them, "Listen, man, we need you to work weekends and holidays and stuff, so the part timers and the full timers can get off and have actual days off." Yeah, 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 yeah. And then once they got hired, they didn't want to work the weekends and holiday because they wanted to just pick up the extra shifts and make the extra money. They weren't really looking to be a resource in that fashion. And then like you said, once they're in, you don't want to fire them because it's hard to replace them. You got to put them through the whole process again of in servicing and getting on board with onboarding them with the agency and everything. So that becomes a problem as well. I used to hate hiring cops to work. Cops that were EMTs, they wanted to get a per diem job. Because like I said before, cops start they're making shit money, so they're looking to make extra money. So they would come work as an EMT per diem. But the problem with that is the cops they get mandated left and right to do shit, to do this, go to court, whatever, and then I'm not coming in. I got to stay. That's their primary job. What are you going to do?
So tangentially, I once had a discussion. It was a really good discussion with a friend of mine about, well, what would stop this? I mean, what would stop you working 80 hours a week and or 100 hours a week or going for as much money as you can? And I said, if they turned around and said, listen,
Keep talking.
I'm here.
Yeah, okay. If they turned around and said, we're paying you $100 an hour, okay, you're instead of the 35 or whatever you're getting now, we're going to pay you $100 an hour. That's like 3 jobs in one. Would you still work the overtime or work per diem for the flat salary? And the answer was absolutely yes, because there was no idea of quality of life, no limit there that they wanted to put on themselves. They wanted to make as much money as they could in as dense a time period as they could. So I don't think that the answer is ever going to be, well, we need just to pay them more. And I hate to come around and say it that way, because I'm all for, we are very underpaid and we need to be paid more. But the flip side is that there's multiple parts of that puzzle that need to be worked out.
We need, number one, to be paid more. Number two, to have more full-time positions, to not rely on part-timers that could be replaced. If you've got 15 part-timers working for you, replace them with 2 or 3 full-timers. That's what you need to do. If every part-time,
I've always said that.
Listen, if every part-timer were able to get a full-time job and therefore have the benefits and a regular salary, they wouldn't bang into the places that they worked, with the understanding that you don't want to lose your benefits. You don't want to lose a good job. And this is an industry where people talk to each other. You got to pay them well. You got to give them full time. You got to give them benefits. That's the right thing to do. Everybody in our profession, well, almost every profession, if you're working full time, you deserve a full time job with full time benefits. You deserve it. That's the way it is here. If you're a contractor, that's another story. You're making $500 an hour, you can buy your own benefits. But
well, that's why you get. I mean, the truth of the matter is unless you're at a very specific house with a very specific set of talents, you're getting that $500 an hour because it's assumed that you're going to buy your own benefits.
Look, Josh, when you graduated, when you left school and heading towards the workforce, you went to Wall Street, is that right, or something tantamount to that? You went to
a circuitous route, but I eventually ended up there. Yeah.
But you went a route where there was really no top end to the amount of salary that you could make.
No. As a matter of fact, in my second year in, the guy I was working with got a $300,000 bonus, and the department head that we were working for got a $16 million bonus.
And that's my point. So, you make that decision. And when I got out of college, I'm going to tell you, I think I could have done a lot of different things. I decided I was going to be a teacher. And in doing that, I knew there was a top end, even with some overtime, which I did some overtime stuff. I did teaching there. And I also knew that I could be a lifeguard in the summer. It was wonderful. And I knew that I wasn't going to make a fortune, and I didn't make a fortune, and I knew I would be comfortable, and I knew I would have time with my kids, and I knew these things, and I knew I would get a pension at the end because I knew what I was signing up for. I made myself knowledgeable about that, and that's a decision you make. When you go into EMS, they need to go in with their eyes wide open. I will tell you, because I'm teaching EMT classes, and I tell you that the very first day I let them know that if you're going into this and you think you're going to be making $120,000 a year as EMT to paramedic, for the most part, you are mistaken, not for a 40-hour week. All right, it's not going to happen. And I let them know it, and I let them know it clearly in so many words. And I tell them, listen, there are great things about this profession. I mean, I love it. There are great things. I said, but you got to get something else going for you if you really want to make enough
reality of it.
Yeah.
And it's not just the pay, it's also what they expect from agencies and patients and hospitals and all that stuff too. It's just listen, people, there are people out there who, and I've written emails about this and talked about this in the past about salaries and not getting rich in EMS, and I've had people come back all uppity telling me, oh, I've made so much money as a paramedic. I own 2 houses and I've done this and I've done that. But that's the exception.
It is.
Very much.
And I tell them how to become an exception.
Did that guy have children?
Yeah, he said he had kids, a wife, the whole 9 yards. And just pretty much knocking down the whole thought process of, we don't make enough money, you're never gonna make a living doing this job, whatever. And I'm with Dave, right? There's a lot of great things with this profession, but don't think you're gonna work just one job and it's gonna be enough.
Well, he wasn't saying that he did that on one job.
He said he did it. Well, actually, I think he was one of those people that was an EMT, then became like a nurse and stuff like that, and just kind of,
he used his career to evolve.
Yeah, his whole encompassing career within emergency medical services, not just being an EMT. So, but you'll get people who come back, they'll watch this podcast or listen to it, and they'll be saying that type of stuff. And I don't want people to get mistaken that I would tell someone not to do this job if it's what you really want to do. But as long as you go into it with the realistic, expectations,
there's
I see a lot of people now that come in that they're looking for that 6-year plan. I want to be a manager. I want to be a supervisor. I want to get off the truck. I want to, teach or manage or supervise, and I don't want to touch people anymore. I don't want to lift anybody off the ground. I don't want to touch blood and vomit and piss and everything else anymore. I want to do that for as little time as possible. And I see that going on way more than I see people coming in saying, I want to learn how to be a good, provider. I want to learn how to be a good clinician.
And there's, when people are, there's one thing to have goals, but there's other things to have those expectations of, that I'm going to have 2 houses and a boat and wife and kids. And then you see the flip side of that argument is that we have A, high attrition, B, higher than normal mental health problems, and much higher than normal divorce rate. So what does that come down to? It comes down to that you are failing in that hierarchical, pyramid of needs, that the Maslow hierarchy, you're failing. Even though you have all those aspects, you have those check boxes, you're not maintaining them. You're failing at them.
Yeah. I want to wrap it up there, guys. I appreciate you guys popping in here. This is the type of topic we could spend freaking hours talking about this stuff. And I think it's good for some people that are watching this that might be coming in that are new or not be maybe struggling with where they're working, thinking they're not getting paid enough money, that they get an insight of what we've seen over the years, how we've seen, the salaries go and what people worked and people coming and going and how it works. Again, today we kind of focus a little bit on FDNY more than anything else, but again, Dave sent that link with the salaries, and they're pretty much around the same, so it's not just unique to FDNY. Some things, the way operate is different, of course, but the actual salary is about the same. So again, guys, thanks for popping in. I really appreciate it. I do want to mention, of course, that this is a COVID episode, and we have, shameless plug, COVID coins still available, just a handful left. It's gonna be a real collector's thing, so if anybody wants it, jump in and get them.
I got mine, Jim.
Things, and Josh has a nice colored one there. So
New York City.
I'll put a link in the show notes if you're interested in getting it. It's at emsseo.com/coin, and I will you can check it out there, and hopefully you get there before they run out. So all right, that's it, guys. Anything else you want to end with before we head out?
No, everything's good. Remember to visit wantanu.com. We ain't nothing till you need us.
What do you got there?
The best oxygen wrench ever made. Ever. I mean, get anything else.
Or aircraft aluminum.
Out of aircraft aluminum. Right. Lightweight and indestructible.
See, it sucks, Josh. Normally I have one right here on the desk, and I don't. I just have
I actually have one, right out of my reach.
I have my
oh, thanks.
Yeah. Maybe here. You can't even get these anymore.
No, Tim stopped making those a long time ago.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like this, but this is a guitar capo.
See, he's got one of those things. That's what we do here.
Remember your pocket calculator.
Pocket calculator. That's also very important to have. Exactly. All right, guys, we'll end it there. Thanks again. I appreciate it. As always, I am Jim Hoffman.
Josh Knapp.
Dave Brenner.
Stay safe.